Chapter 14. We dock at Waset in the late afternoon, people lining the streets to cheer their king upon his return. As I near the row of dignitaries welcoming the pharaoh, the first person I recognize is the vizier, the dried-up old fig himself. Fortunately, the second person is my friend the high priest. "I have a lot to tell you," I say. "I'll come down to your study as soon as I have a chance."
"I am looking forward to it."
When we return to the palace, I stay with the pharaoh until he leads a group of officials into the audience chamber. Having been away for almost 3 months, he has to catch up on the situation in Waset. This is my cue to begin my own catching up, and I go to see the high priest in his study. I find him sitting at his table with his nose buried in an old papyrus, reading. He isn't aware of my presence, so I rub my head against his legs. I startle him. When he regains his wits, he bends down and lifts me up to the table.
"Rapa-Haman," he says, "you seem to have gained some weight in Menfi."
I let the remark slide. "I've missed you, Gato Haman."
"Me too."
He strokes me warmly from head to tail, and I reciprocate with a long, loud purr. When I can no longer restrain my curiosity about the very powerful incantation he mentioned in his last letter to the pharaoh, I ask him if it's finished.
"I am sorry, Rapa-Haman. My work has only begun. I will jinx it by talking about it."
He should know. After all, like magic, superstition is his stock in trade. My curiosity is further aroused by the sight of a dilapidated small boat in a corner. What's a boat doing here?
"Oh, nothing. I just happened to come across it. It was abandoned."
The high priest is as secretive about the boat as he is about his incantation. Maybe there's a connection. More questions will get me nowhere. He'll tell me what he wants me to know when he's good and ready. But the high priest does fill me in on the latest gossip. My pretty servant girls in Menfi would love to hear it.
"The vizier apparently met with an accident back in Menfi. On his return to Waset, he was taken from the ship to the palace face down on a litter, apparently unable to sit. When he did sit again, he sat lopsided, favoring his left cheek. No one knows what happened to him because he will not talk about it."
"I'll tell you what happened to him."
"You know?"
"Oh, yes."
"I'm all ears."
I start by telling him how the mummy appeared in my dream to warn me not to eat, and how the vizier tried to drown me. Then I describe all the minute details of his punishment. Sometimes the high priest laughs so hard he can't hear me, and I have to stop until he calms down. And sometimes I laugh so hard I have to stop until I calm down.
"Oh, Rapa-Haman, you are wonderful, wonderful,"
he says when I finally finish, giving me a slap on the back. We agree that a butt in the ass by the hop bull was enough punishment for kicking cats, but not nearly enough for having tried to drown me.
"That dried-up old fig, as your pretty servant girls call him, has always resented you and your powers. He is jealous of our friendship, but even more of your special relationship with the pharaoh. Since your arrival, the vizier's power over him has waned. There is no telling what the vizier might try next. You must be careful, Rapa-Haman."
I will. Besides, I have you and the pharaoh to watch over me. But there's something else I must tell you. I describe how the mummy talked through the statue of King Khafre and gave me the ability to read so I could memorize the words that briefly appeared on the statue's chest. I skip the fact that I'd be pissed myself. It has no bearing on the story. I do add that I had to read the words silently. Let me recite the words for you. But before I utter even the first one, the high priest puts a hand over my mouth.
"Silence, Rapa-Haman. Those words must carry a very potent spell if the statue told you to read them silently."
Do you think the mummy was Bastet's doing?
"I don't know, but one day you will be enlightened, and perhaps you will need to use the magic spell. Till then, Rapa-Haman, keep it safe in your heart."
It's very late. Time to leave. But the high priest has one more thing to tell me.
"Rapa-Haman,"
he says,
I think that you will be especially pleased to learn that milk baths are now all the rage at the royal palace. I have not yet had one myself, but I have been told that the effects are quite invigorating and beneficial. Why not try one before you turn in tonight?
A bath in water? Never. But a milk bath? Another matter entirely. I thank the high priest for his suggestion and, as a token of my appreciation, run around the study mimicking the vizier with his dress pulled up fleeing the hop bull. As I head up the stairs, I glance back to savor the effect my shenanigans have had. The high priestess doubled over in laughter. In the pharaoh's ablution room, I sit on a low stool resting on a stone slab with drainage canals on either side. 2 pretty servant girls wash me. While one pours tepid milk over me, ever so slowly, the other rubs it into my fur. They're dressed in simple linen robes, but their wigs are elaborate, the long strands of plaited hair interwoven with colorful faience beads reaching almost to their breasts. When they lean over me, the strands fall forward, and if some milk splatters onto the strands, I stretch my neck to reach the creamy droplets with my tongue. I'm licking milk from my paws and shoulders when the girl who's been pouring it suddenly switches to cool water. Water! No one told me about this part. Panicking, I unsheath my foreclaws and hook them into the first thing I see, the long, plaited, beaded strands of her wig. She also panics and abruptly straightens up, lifting me from the stool. Hanging in midair, I hear the tinkling of faience beads falling on the stone slab, followed by the loud crash of the fallen pitcher and the even louder scream from the girl. The wig slips off her head and onto the floor with me still attached to it. Somehow I free one paw from the tangled mess, but not without also freeing more faience beads from the strands and, with the wig still caught in the other paw, run out of the ablution room, followed by the foulest threats. After I finish burying the wig in the garden, I go inside to the royal bedchamber. The pharaoh is lying in bed, his eyes closed.
Rapa Amen, he says in a sleepy voice. I smell milk. Any chance you had a milk bath today?
I say nothing, climb into the bed, and curl up beside him. Beneath my rump is something tiny but hard, like a pebble. When I take a look, I find a green faience bead. I flick it off the bed. I could swear I hear the pharaoh's stifled laughter. When his breathing starts to sound like a soft purr, I know he's sleeping. As I drift off, I imagine myself as the fierce cat who cuts off the head of Apep, the giant serpent. It's near the end of Farmertai, the last month of the sowing season. This morning, the pharaoh and I are at the royal dock, like many of the citizens of Waset, waiting for the arrival of 5 of his ships carrying goods from the land of Punt and guests of honor, the chief of Punt, his wife, and children. About a year ago, before my arrival, a bartering expedition was sent to the land of Punt, which is down the west coast of the Red Sea. There had been other expeditions to Punt, but this was the first during the pharaoh's reign. With ox carts and donkeys carrying food and drink and goods for bartering, it traveled from Geptu, a city north of Waset, through the desert along a dried-up riverbed to the Red Sea, then sailed down the coast to Punt, where the Egyptian goods were exchanged for local ones. The chief of Punt convinced the captain of the expedition to take him, his wife, and children back with him to visit Egypt. The expedition returned to Geptu, following the same route, and is now sailing to Waset. The merchants of the city are happy. They will make a big profit on the goods from Punt. The temple priests are happy. These ships carry large supplies of myrrh, which they will burn at the altars in honor of the gods. The common people are happy. They will enjoy the spectacle of the arriving ships and have a chance to buy new and rare things. The pharaoh is happy because his people are happy. I'm happy because he is, and because yesterday, when he got word the Puntites were in Egypt, he sent the vizier to Tonterre to get him out of the way. He plans to ask the chief of Punt to allow some of his children be raised at court, which would strengthen the bonds between the two countries. The vizier believes there are enough foreigners at court, maybe because he married a foreigner who left him and returned to her own country when she discovered what a rat he was. "The ships are coming!" someone cries.
The ships are coming!
3 white sails have appeared on the horizon, and soon the ships themselves come into view, sailing low in the water because of their heavy cargo. The men on the ships wave to the spectators on shore, who wave back, me included. The first ship docks, the captain of the expedition disembarks, and the crowd cheers him. Next come the chief of Punt, his wife, and children. The chief is a tall man, standing above the tallest Egyptian by a palm of a hand, and his wife is the fattest human I've ever seen. I discover later that the Puntites believe a fat wife is a sign of wealth. The tall chief and his very fat wife are each wrapped in a red cloth, extending almost to the knees and covering only one shoulder, where it's held together by a large gold brooch. They don't wear wigs. His hair is short, and she wears hers in long braids woven into a pile that looks like a tower. Heavy gold collars encircle their necks, and there are lots of ivory bracelets around their ankles and exposed upper arms. Their jewelry is set off by their ebony skin. Their children are naked except for a girdle around the waist, like Egyptian children. The captain of the expedition bows to the pharaoh, who smiles at the chief and his wife. The captain speaks to them in their language, and they bow to the pharaoh. Everybody's smiling. The Puntites would have enjoyed meeting the high priest, but he's in his temple giving thanks to the god Ammon for the safe and successful return of the expedition. It's a good thing the vizier isn't here. One look at his grim face and the Puntites would return home immediately. Then the pharaoh introduces me. "Welcome to Egypt," I say. The Puntites look at me in amazement, and the chief says something to the pharaoh. The captain interprets, whispering in the pharaoh's ear. No, the pharaoh declares. I would never consider trading him. These foreigners work fast, but I can't blame them. As exotic as the land of Punt is, it doesn't have a cat like me. Slowly, the goods are unloaded, the crowd responding with exclamations of wonder. There are myrrh trees and pots of soil, live animals, including dogs and monkeys, and animal skins, among which, I'm sad to say, are panther skins. Despite the noise, the men unloading, the conversation with the Puntites, the shouts from the crowd, I detect the distant sound of people crying. I leave to investigate and soon come upon a funeral procession headed for the river. Someone rich has died. Heading the procession are his servants, carrying stacks of cloth and large trays of food, oils, and flowers. Behind them are more servants, carrying furniture and chests of clothing and linen. All these material things their master will need in his afterlife. The deceased was a military man. Another group of servants is carrying bows, arrows, and swords, the tools of his profession. Then comes the source of the crying, a slew of professional mourners, clad in funereal bluish-gray dresses, their faces dirty with mud. They're wailing and pulling their hair in a great display of grief. Next, on a wooden sled pulled by an ox, is a statue of the deceased. Behind the sled walk the priests. The one leading them must be the priest in charge of the funeral. He wears a leopard skin over his white linen robe and waves a censer, filling the air with fragrant, smoky clouds. In a boat carried on a sled pulled by a pair of oxen comes the coffin containing the mummy. Covering the sides of the boat are colorfully painted leather panels that contrast sharply with the somber bluish-gray dresses of the 2 kites, female mourners, kneeling at either end of the sled. Every death recalls that of Osiris, and the kites are the goddess Eshet and Nebhat mourning his death. Behind the coffin walks the widow with family and friends. They all look sad, but unlike the mourners, none are crying. All their tears were probably spent when their loved one died. There can be no funeral till the mummy is ready, and that takes more than 2 months. When the funeral procession reaches the river, it heads to a dock where 5 boats are waiting with men ready to row. The professional mourners, except for the 2 kites, board the first boat. The coffin is eased onto the second boat, the hearse boat, which is full of flowers and palm branches, and placed in the cabin. Then the priests and the 2 kites board, followed by the family and friends. The priest in the leopard skin incenses the coffin, while the 2 kites are giving what may be the performance of their lives. The servants, along with the goods they carry, fill the remaining 3 boats. Then, the mourner's boat, towing the hearse boat, leads the sad procession across the Nile to the western shore, where the burial grounds are located. I find my way back to the Pharaoh. Like a shadow, a feeling of foreboding follows me, a feeling not even the happy company can dissipate. Now being unloaded are large quantities of ivory, ebony, cinnamon wood, myrrh gum, eye paint, incense, and other rarities. The Pharaoh, his guests, and I leave the dock when all the cargo has been unloaded from the first ship. The second ship carries more of the same, as do the others. It's only exciting to watch the first ship being unloaded. In the evening, a banquet is held at the royal palace to honor the Puntites and to celebrate the success of the Punt expedition. The banqueting hall is ablaze with the light of hundreds of oil lamps and filled with continuous music and laughter. The high priest is talking with the Puntites. He knows enough of their language to keep up a conversation. The chief's wife devours whatever food she sees. Whenever a servant brings a tray, the high priest distracts her so he can take some before she empties it. A clever man. In a few days, the Puntites, having seen Waset and its temples, will go on to visit other cities and to raid other larders. They can stay in Egypt only a short time. The chief has left his brother in charge and wants to return home before his brother becomes ambitious. The Pharaoh and I are exhausted by the time we retire to the royal bedchamber. He falls asleep almost immediately, but I wait for my turn, wait and wait. Why is sleep eluding me tonight? My mind wanders back to the 5 funeral boats, the hearse boat making its way to the western shore, the bluish-gray garments of the kites fluttering in the wind as they stand like sentinels at either side of the coffin. Again, the foreboding I felt earlier today takes hold of me. I feel a chill and move closer to the Pharaoh. His warmth is all I need. Now sleep can no longer elude me.